Grab your drinks and get a seat, and we're going to get the film program started and the discussion. I, as the Executive Director of Asia Society Hong Kong Center, I want to thank the Consul General of Mexico for suggesting this program a little bit over a month ago. And I want to thank our team for putting it together in record time. As those of you who are Asia Society Hong Kong Center members know that programs like this, we do work quite a bit to present program like this. And we generally try to not say no, but lately, because of our schedule, this has been a very busy year with our own 5th anniversary earlier this year and the 20th anniversary of the handover. Our program schedule is actually quite packed. And there are times a program idea comes along and we just cannot say no. And so this is one of them. I think this program, I think you'll learn from the documentary we're about to see. It's about 30 minutes, and afterward we'll have the Consul General of Mexico, Damian Martinez Taguña, come up and say a few words. It really is a wonderful opportunity for us to kind of share with you some of the stories, some of these issues that some of us are not aware of. And so I think, as many of you know, environmental issue is very much in the news this last week. Some of it not so great news. But I do believe that at times, I think when we learn about the consequences of our action, we actually want to make the world better. And I'm so glad to see so many young people here tonight. I think the more we learn about what's going on, that we can make a difference. Individually, each one of us can make a difference. This is why I keep on telling our staff, there are times I feel we're working against the tides. But I remember the discussion about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, living in Hong Kong, the talk about a shark fin. And now I think we all know a lot of action, a lot of environmental groups and individuals, and it's an issue that we're aware of now, and that we can make a difference, and we can say no to eating shark fin at wedding banquets. And so I think that's just an example of that we do learn, and so we do learn, and we do want to make a difference. So I think a program like this tonight, we are very, very honored to be part of. And I want to thank Consul General of Mexico for giving us this opportunity. Damien has only been here a year and has already kind of made an impact. And not only for tonight's program, but rarely do we serve Mexican tequila and Coronas. I've had one because this is something I really miss in the hot summer days in the States. So thank you, Consul General, for bringing that to us tonight. And so please enjoy the program and learn more about the issue and really see what you can do individually and collectively about it. And I want to also thank our other speakers, Grant Abel, a director for animal care at Ocean Park. Thank you, Grant. And the other speakers are going to be Lorenzo, Rojas, Bracho, Chair of International Committee for the Recovery of the Vaquitas. He's coming in all the way from Mexico to be with us. And of course, U.S. Consul General to Hong Kong, Macau, Kurt Tong, who's also going to be on the program. And Consul General Damian Martinez Taguña will moderate the discussion afterward. So enjoy the film, and we look forward to seeing you at future programs, and enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Hi. Is it okay? Yeah, okay. Hi, well, thanks. Thank you all so much for caring and for being here. Thanks to Asia Society for organizing this so quickly. Thanks, obviously, to the U.S. Consul General for supporting us in this initiative, for working with us throughout. Grant, Lorenzo, thanks so much for flying all the way from Mexico and staying awake, even though it's the middle of the night now for you. So just a few things before I turn this over to Lorenzo. One is we understand that there are problems in many places, starting with, of course, in Mexico, that have led to this situation. And we are determined to addressing this problem comprehensively. So we're working on, or trying to work on, investing actually a lot of resources and time and people into the social component of this, to the fisheries, into the law enforcement part of it, into the conservation part of it. and also comprehensive in terms of the market, from the illegal fishing to the consumption of the product here in the South China region. So this is what we feel that it's very important to do what we hope will be the second part of the film, which we feel, we would like to think that it will be a more upbeat second half of the film. So this is the part of the film in which we saw how we all got together into this huge mess, and the second part will be how we all got out of this together as well. So the last thing you saw in the film was the effort to capture the Vaquita, which is imminent, and it will take place in October. So Dr. Lorenzo Rojas Bracho and Grant Abel will now do briefly go through what's coming up next steps, and then we can further discuss, right? So please.
Okay, well, good night, everybody, and thanks very much for being here. I like to thank Damian. He has a way of convincing someone to fly thousands of kilometers to be here. A lot of energy, and I like to thank the consul, Grant, and everybody here. So I'm going to talk you briefly about Vaquita CPR, which starts for Vaquita Conservation, Protection, and Recovery. This is our program to capture vaquitas, and these are probably as last chance. So just let me show you this graph here. And the population was declining about 8% since we started monitoring in the early 1990s. And then you see here when this explosion for the demand of swim bladders started. And this means a population decline of 38.8% per year, which is about 90% decline of what we had. And so that's the major threat. We have less than 30 animals left. Una from Sea Shepherds, a good friend and a good colleague, mentioned 3 from last year, and we just were able to recover 5 more this year. And again, the major threat for vaquita is, of course, bycatching these gillnets for totoaba, that it's been explained nicely in the film we just saw. And this shows, when I started working with vaquita, we had about 600 in 1997. Our second survey was 245. Our last survey in 2015, 65, and just in 2016, only 30. And so we're losing about 95% of the population since I started working with vaquita, which is very dramatic to be a witness of this kind of population decline. And so, fortunately, we have Secretary Pacquiano, who, through the years, I worked with many secretaries, and not because he's the current secretary, but nobody has invested so much time and energy and funds to try to save the vaquita. And the photograph you see there is when we were awarded the Conservation Merit Prize by the Society for Marine Mammalogy in 2015, and to our key colleagues, Barbara Taylor and Francis Gouland there. And there has been also a presidential meeting and an agreement that the U.S. would be supporting Mexico efforts to save the vaquita, and I have like to thank the U.S. I did my PhD there, and I've been working 30 years with scientists from the National Marine Fisheries Service for vaquita, and we created jointly the International Committee for the Recovery of Vaquita, which it's been the key scientific body to advise the Mexican government for conservation actions. So in our last meeting, this is what we said: the only hope for the survival of vaquita at this point in time is to capture vaquitas and bring them into human care. And we started this doing in 2015, and Grant has been a key member of this group. I don't pretend you to read these. If you can read it, that will be okay, but just the idea is to show you, this is our group. We started working in 2015. We have a general director, and then we have advisors, and then we have Grant here as one of the co-program managers, and Dr. Sinton Smith. And then we have a group that deals with capture, the group that deals with finding. And so it's a huge group. It's about 40 people from all over the world trying to help and save vaquita, and many doing it pro bono. And so this is a scheme of our project. It's the main mantra, I would say, is we don't give any step until we succeed in the first one. So we started finding vaquita, and you will see how interesting this is, kind of a science fiction thing, and then we catch, we assess if the health of the vaquita, and Grant might explain that better than I do. If it's not stressed and we think it will survive human care, then we go to the next step and do the initial housing of the vaquitas, and then a final sanctuary, and then we have guidelines to release them back to their habitat. Now, the main thing, this is not the conservation action. This buys us time to be able to have alternative fishing gear, because you cannot save the vaquita and send fishermen to extinction. So you have to give them those options to the fishermen. So this is a program that will buy us time to design alternative gear and implement them in the upper Gulf of California. So this is how we find vaquitas. We usually use our boats and these binoculars. We look 5 kilometers from the boat and detect vaquitas. We also use acoustics to find them, and then we will have some vessel with these towers to look for the vaquitas. But what is very novel, and nobody has done it before, I mean, the scale of the catch is larger than any experiences before, but we will be using Navy dolphins from the US, which that is a kind of a science fiction part of our program. So in 2015, I was in a meeting in San Diego of the International Whaling Commission Scientific Committee, and Sam Ridgway from the National Marine Mammal Foundation, we were discussing about this potential option, and I told him that our main problem is we can find vaquitas, but how can we track them? And he said, well, if US dolphins can find divers and any object in the ocean, they will be able to find vaquitas and track them. And so we started working with the US Navy on this issue, and they trained the dolphins, and then someone in one of the meetings had the idea, take the dolphins to the Golden Gate in San Francisco where you have harbor porpoise, and if they can find them, then we know they will find vaquitas. And so we did that, and they found them, and we're starting in October to test this idea. It's one cetacean species helping to save another one. So it's a kind of a very interesting, and again, nobody has tried it. There's a risk, like in any project, there's a risk here. But I think if we don't do it, the vaquitas for sure will die if you leave them in the water, where the risk factor that kills them is still there, which are these totoaba gillnets. And then the catch team, we will have a vet in each of the boats, and we'll have teams from the US and Denmark. Probably Grant will also be there, who has experience in catching. When we catch them, we will have a vet that will assess each of the individuals, and if it's the vet thinks it's fit to take them into human care, we'll take them. If not, we'll release them, and then we have a group of experts which will advise us also if there's a doubt in how to proceed. And we have also people from Australia in that group, from Mexico and Japan. And then this is the assessment of the vaquitas. You see some photographs and some people you might know in those photographs, and determine if the vaquitas then tolerate the human care. Then we proceed to bring them into housing options. And this is almost the last slide, but I will allow or invite Grant to talk about that, because he's the one who's coordinating these housing options, and he might explain much better than I will do all this issue.
Thank you, Lorenzo. And I'd just like to echo thanks to everyone here, the consuls and Asia Society for hosting this event tonight, and for everybody coming here to listen to the story which affects us and affects our community in many ways. And to the housing, I'd like to just add to a point that with regard to the catching section of this program, one of the biggest unknowns for us is the fact that this porpoise has never been intentionally caught for alive before. And so unlike other species of dolphins and porpoises that have been caught and have been maintained under care or in captive environments elsewhere, or rehabilitated and released after rehabilitation, this has never been attempted with Vaquita. And so we will be guided entirely by the responses of the vaquita that are caught and involved in this program every step of the way. So monitoring their condition, their behavior, their responses, how quickly they adapt to feeding, how quickly they adapt to a confined space, if at all, are all going to be very important decision benchmarks in this process. On the far left of the screen, you can see what looks like a small pen with a little boat in the middle of it out in the middle of the sea. That pen is about a 40-meter diameter net, which is an outer protection net, really. And within that net are two other smaller pens, one 9 meters in diameter and the other about 6 meters in diameter. And the smaller diameter net is reasonably shallow so that people can enter the net and handle the vaquita and support the animals during what we call assisted feeding. We will be providing local species of fish, but we don't expect the animals to be eating right away. And so often, as you saw in an earlier photograph with a finless porpoise being supported in a foam mattress and being fed, we expect to be doing this with the vaquita at that point in time in one of the sea pens inside that facility that you can see there. Now, all of that will be happening out in the middle of the Vaquita refuge, offshore, about 10 to 12 kilometers offshore. So you can imagine that work is going to be very weather dependent. And as such, there is also a plan to establish a land-based facility so that if animals need to be relocated quickly and a decision is made to relocate them to the land-based facility, that we've actually got somewhere to go. Particularly in the case of inclement weather or something of that nature. If we find, and we should point out here, if we find that during any step of that process that the animals do not respond well and appear to deteriorate or simply cannot respond to being in a restrained environment, then the decisions, I believe, pretty much have been made. The animals will be released back into the refuge. And that's one of the reasons for having this facility out in the middle of the sea in the refuge itself, so that the animals can be released back into the space from which they were caught. Now, if we find, if everything goes to plan, and we do find that the animals respond in ways similar to, say, finless porpoises or harbour porpoises that do adapt and do adapt well and do reproduce under managed care, then that will trigger the next phase, which is really long-term housing. And the long-term housing has been described as a marine sanctuary. The center photograph there you can see is an example of a facility in Mexico. And I must say the Mexican community have developed these in-water structures and facilities exceptionally well, better than many other places around the world. And they're an ideal model for this particular exercise. The space which is being planned for the long-term care of the vaquita and for their future reproduction is an area about 2 or 3 times the size of a football field, with a natural base, a natural sand bottom, of course, and access for continuing managed care. And that's a critical element. The veterinary care, the study of the animals, their physiology, their reproductive biology, all of those kinds of, all of that type of work will be conducted during the time that the animals are under managed care. And at this point in time, we really don't know how long that's going to be. I mean, for the past 20 years or so, the concerted efforts of NGOs and the government and so on, trying to work with the community to end the totoaba fishing or the illegal fishing, to remove the nets and so on from the environment is ongoing. So nobody really knows whether that's going to continue, whether it needs another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So it really is a long-term plan that has been put in place with this facility. And it's still being planned as we speak, but it would be ready to be constructed once we know for certain that the animals can be brought into captive care. The other photographs are some aerial photographs, or Google Map photographs, I guess, of the location around San Felipe where it's proposed to have this facility. And it's vitally important, I think, to ensure that the facility is in San Felipe. The people of that community have a vested interest in Vaquita and this entire program. After all, this is a Mexican program. It is a Mexican legacy. And the engagement, public engagement in the community is vitally important for its success, both in the short term, getting it established and up and running, but also in the long term to ensure that there's education within the community, there's engagement from the fishermen and from the community generally to support the program. And that in turn can help ensure that the Vaquita refuge can be cleared of the fishing, the illegal fishing and the nets that remain there, so that the animals can go back. And let's be clear, that is the objective. We must also understand that it may not be the original animals that are brought out of the water that actually go back. It may be their progeny if the long-term program is in fact successful. So with that in mind, the managed care program is also keeping topmost of mind the fact that the progeny will need to know how to fend for themselves, how to feed, how to discriminate between the prey species, when and where to go, and that type of knowledge. So it's a very complex project, very long term, we hope, and it really couldn't have been made possible without I think, a very brave, committed program from SERVA through the recommendations and from the Mexican government to invest and to give the animals this last chance, really, to save them from extinction.
Thank you so much to both of you. So I don't know, Kurt, if you would like to address the room.
Well, thanks, Damien. And clearly, I am the non-expert on this panel compared to the gentleman who just spoke. And you might be wondering, why is the U.S. Consul General even here? Just a couple things about the United States' role in this activity of trying to save the Vaquita. I think it's already been mentioned that American scientists have been involved in trying to think about things like alternative fishing technologies, the mention of the dolphins from the Navy and the like. And I think that's a really good example of the kind of close cooperative relationship that we have both at the government level, but also, and perhaps more important, between NGOs and academic scientists in the conservation field between the United States and Mexico. Another one was brought up, I think, a bit in the movie, which is the whole question of law enforcement. And as I think at some point in the movie they showed a map of the Baja California, right? And where it is located, and clearly it's right near the United States. And so just logically, the natural pathway for the illegal swim bladders to be shipped out of Mexico to Asia is a lot of that's going to travel through the United States. And so we've had a lot of close cooperation between U.S. and Mexican authorities trying to intercept smuggling of this material and convict people who are involved in that trade. Because I thought the movie captured it well, that they're usually when an endangered species, this is true certainly true in the case of elephants and the ivory trade. There's a lot of organized crime and illegal activity at the higher levels of the distribution chain, and that's something that certainly the United States is committed to trying to eliminate. And there's been some success. Recently, there was 7 people convicted. They were forced to hand over $500,000, which was given to Mexican authorities to contribute to the efforts in saving the Vaquita. But I think there's a lot more that could be done on both sides of the Pacific. And we have people here this evening from Customs and Border Protection, and they and other colleagues are involved in working with the Hong Kong SAR government, customs authorities, trying to eliminate this illegal trade. And there's also mainland Chinese law enforcement involved in that effort. And the last thing I would mention, and I think it's clear from this event, is the whole question of consciousness raising. If the species makes it through the next few years, there will still be a long-term problem, even as there's right now a desperate short-term problem, because there's demand driving the consumption of this endangered species, and the endangered species that swims with the totoaba, which is the Vaquita. And so, and this is not original stuff, but there are NGOs and movie actors. I mean, you all know Leonardo DiCaprio, who was, famously almost killed by a bear in his last movie. So he knows all about animals. But he has been out there campaigning, trying to raise people's attention to this issue, along with others, trying to leverage that celebrity to get people to think about it. And so I think our Mexican friends this evening have been very polite in thinking about why are we talking about this tonight in Hong Kong. And I think it came up in the film, but the answer to that is obvious, which is that Hong Kong, not just Hong Kong law enforcement, but Hong Kong citizens have a role to play in this, in suppressing the demand for swim bladders, which is driving the species to extinction. And so part of our hope this evening, or my hope this evening, is that you will all go out and tell your friends about the side effect of the consumption of this species, and hopefully that demand suppression will also have an impact, and certainly it'll have an impact on the profiteering that people are doing off of this endangered species.
Well, thank you so much. I obviously wholeheartedly agree with what you just said. Our hope is that you all here, each of you talk to 5 friends and get those 5 friends to talk to 5 friends. Then there will be much more awareness about this problem. It will be much harder for these groups to continue their trade. It will be much harder for every government, including my own, to let go of the issue, which is clearly a long-term issue. So it's important to keep working. So before I open this to questions, just two quick additional thank you that I have to give. One is to Wild Lens, which is a U.S. nonprofit organization who's responsible for this film. They gave us permission to show it. I think it's a very good film, but it literally is half a film. They are working for the other half of the film. So I promised that they offered not to charge us a screening fee, and I offered to let all of you know that they're also looking for funding for the other half of the film. So you can go into their webpage. It's Wild Lens again. So that's one. The other part that it has been touched upon, but I want to make explicit, is this is an effort between several governments, but it's also an effort with civil society and with NGOs. And this is something that needs to be highlighted, and that should be a model in general for public policy. So there are many organizations here that have done outstanding work on this already. You saw the Sea Shepherd boat doing extraordinary work on site. WWF, Greenpeace. I'm sure I'm letting some out, but I mean, on behalf of not I guess the Mexican government, but I think the Mexicans in general, we're very grateful for the support, and well, thank you for so much for what you're doing. So I guess that's the main messages have been conveyed. So maybe we could see if there are any questions that we can answer. It's like a very big topic, so let's start with yeah.
One question. I think that part of the problem is also the extent network that is working on this business. I would like to know how are sent all these shipments of swim bladder from Mexico to here, how they arrive.
I would like to know that too. Obviously, I mean, it's not, it's a long way away, but what makes this super complicated, there are two things that make this very, very difficult. One is this is just one type of fish maw, right? The fish maw market in South China area in Hong Kong is huge. It's thousands of tons of fish meal per year. So it's a very big market, and totoaba is just one particular species. So it's very difficult to control the entire flow. So some of it is probably coming within legitimate shipments by people that are breaking the law. They're breaking the Mexican law, they're breaking U.S. law, they're breaking Hong Kong law, they're breaking Chinese law. So it's not that this is a matter of legislation. The other thing is they're relatively small. So there's been some arrests done of people that are also hand carrying them over. So that makes it even more complicated. So information sharing between law enforcement authorities is taking place, and that will have to continue. A point that I think we've made, but again, just to make explicit, is that the Vaquita CPR is not a replacement to the responsibility. It does not take away the responsibility of fighting this traffic. So this will not, this is not giving up. This is, we will still need to work on this, and we will still need to cooperate on this issue.
Thank you. My understanding is that the problem with the Vaquita is that it's basically collateral damage from the fishing of the totoaba. Can you talk a little bit more about the sort of economics of that? Like, is the rest of the fish discarded so that no one eats the rest of the fish? It's just the fish bladder goes.
Yeah, that's a sad thing. It's first quality meat, the totoaba meat. And when we were kids, that was kind of not a common fish, but it was something that people would look to eat. I mean, it was a great fish. But now that you go out fishing and you're doing it illegally, so the best thing is to gut the fish, take the swim bladder, and then throw the fish back to the water. Or we have seen areas where you see 5 or 10 carcasses of totoaba that were just gutted. So that's basically one of the issues now.
And that's depressing. The second half of the question is, are there other types of fish bladder, fish maw, I guess it is, that are okay? I mean, is this like shark's fin, where basically any fin is bad, or are there some that are all right? And how does one actually know, if you go to the market and buy one, that this is one you shouldn't be buying?
Yeah, the other one that it's suffering the same as the Corvina. That's a legal fishery, and that's the only fishery that it's allowed in the upper Gulf right now with gill nets. And in recent times, the swim bladder, the cost of the swim bladder, or the price of the swim bladder, has increased about 10,000%. So we're seeing now Corvinas degutted and thrown away, and just trying to save the swim bladder. But those are the only two that are available. Some of them are easy to, and there were some shown in the film where you can notice which one is totoaba, but there are others that are not so easy, and you need.
But my question is, if you go to the market here and you buy one, how does one know that this one is okay and the other one is not? Or are there none that are okay?
Okay, so the best answer I could give you to that is that all countries should be doing more research on this. I don't think I know we've been asking around in Mexico trying to get if this is a variable that's been sufficiently explored, and my sense is that it isn't. In terms of sustainability, not in terms of trafficking. It's very easy to know if it's totoaba, first because of the price, second because it will probably not be sold openly, and third because it's got a very characteristic 2 strands that are on the outside that they don't cut off, because that otherwise the buyer wouldn't buy it believing it's totoaba. So it's probably not totoaba. So in terms of if it's illegal from totoaba, if you're going just to the market to buy it, it's probably not. Now, is the more that you're buying sustainable and sustainably fished? I think there's more research to be done there, yeah.
Another issue is if you go there, you don't see them labeled. So you just buy fish more. You don't know where that comes from. That's pretty hard here.
My question is on this. When you capture the vaquitas, the vet has a look at it, and sees whether it is okay for housing, basically. Those that are not healthy enough are then returned to the sea. Are those, the ones that are returned to the sea, are they tracked? Have they got a GPS on them to catch them later, possibly?
Yeah, we have a team of experts that have been doing this for many years. Randy Wells lead that team, and we will put satellite trackers on those that we release. And even though it's a small area, as one of CIRVA members said, it's always surprising when you track these animals where they go places you never expected. So yeah, that's a good question, and we're doing that.
My question, this is a wonderful film. I just got on vaquitacpr.org, and it's only in 2 languages, Spanish and English. Is there any plan to make it into Chinese? And also the film itself, Chinese subtitles? I mean, is there something we can help with that? Because this audience, great, we will, but I'm curious to how do you kind of get the message across to the Chinese-speaking audience?
The consulate just, I mean, the thing that we're trying to do to help and with Grant.
I can perhaps help you with that question. It has been translated to Chinese. Fortunately, NGOs in Hong Kong have assisted with that. Conservation International, one of those NGOs. And we're actually looking for a host platform for the Chinese version. There are some complications in hosting the Chinese version on the US platform that exists at present. So anyone who would like to discuss hosting that platform would be very happy to speak to, please. But it has been fully translated into Chinese, ready to go.
And with regards to the film, we also help Wildlands get some volunteers, and they're working on the simplified and traditional Chinese subtitles.
Hello. First, I just want to say thank you for what I think is an extremely, not just noble, but courageous and optimistic effort to try to save the Vaquita. And I think what I want to ask Lorenzo and Grant, I mean, there are success stories of us saving humanity, saving species from extinction. And what are some of your favorite stories and examples of which species were down to very, very few, but have now recovered? And after you tell us your favorite example, then I'd also like to hear more about the funding needs behind the Vaquita CPR program.
Sure. There's three that come to mind, but one I think that we all know, the giant panda, a number of years ago was facing a similar fate, extinction. And it's through ex situ conservation or breeding giant pandas under human care that has saved that species from extinction. The funds that are generated through those care programs in the various zoos all around the world, including Hong Kong, Ocean Park, as you may well know, also is keeping giant pandas. So through that program, the awareness has been created, the motivation throughout the community, political community, NGOs, to protect areas where in Sichuan where the pandas are only found, and to the extent now that captive-bred giant pandas are being reintroduced back into managed environments, natural environments. I think that's one of the probably most prominent, one of the most successful leading models, which many other programs of this nature have followed. One of my favorites actually is from my home country in New Zealand, where in the Chatham Islands there were 8 black robins left in the world, and of that 8 black robins there was 1 female. Now, can you imagine that challenge? And the reason that it's a lot of pressure. There, yeah. And of course they're monogamous, so it was really only one breeding pair. And the reason they got to that point was through deforestation on the islands. And so the NGOs, the community, the government got together. They obviously had to replant the habitat for them. But in bringing those that female and her mate into captive care and establishing a reproduction program. They found that they were mating, they were laying eggs, but they weren't able to incubate well. And so what they did was, with the fertile eggs, they were able to transfer them into the nests of other species, and through that ingenuity, they were able to breed more of these amazing little black robins only found in the Chatham Islands of New Zealand. And now the populations are stable. So imagine being faced with that, where you have one female left. You know, that's a very important female. And the entire, you know, conservation community in New Zealand got together and they worked it out. And that, to me, is inspirational. And it's that type of inspiration that we want to bring to this effort. And in so doing, we're hosting a XC2 workshop in San Diego in August, bringing people from these other programs, giant pandas, the finless porpoise program in the Yangtze River, and folks from New Zealand and elsewhere, to a workshop to discuss those successes and lessons learned from those successes, and also to discuss other programs that have failed, such as the Baiji dolphin that became extinct or declared extinct, I think about 2004, something like that. So from those lessons learned, we hope to ensure that this Vaquita CPR program can become even more robust and benefit from that information and those experiences. Talk about money after Lorenzo talks about his favorite story. Vaquita might be his favorite story.
Well, I hope it will be my favorite story in a few years. But there are two that I really like. One is northern elephant seals. It's a different story, but they were overexploited in the 1800s, and we thought they were extinct, or people thought they were extinct. There was a group of researchers and found, I don't know, like 10 or 12, decided to kill them all and take them to the Smithsonian. But gladly, there were 20 left somewhere else. And Mexico protected the elephant seals, and now we have over 150,000 animals. So that just was being protected mainly in Mexico and then with the U.S. But another one similar, and it's also the same magic number with Californian condors, also on our side of the world. 8 were left, and the most successful breeding female died. And now we have condors in the wild, and we have a friend who's doing an amazing job, also science fiction, trying to show the condors now to fly to other areas to colonize the Baja California Peninsula. And so they have a plan to fly them and show them how to get to other places. But that's another successful story that everybody condemns it, that there's no way Californian condors will make it back. And now they are there in the wild. And then here's a slide on the budget. And I can tell you, I think we're short. We have most of the money yet. We need about $500,000 needed, and I can to continue for the full first part of the project. Though we have the funds to do it right now and start that, and then I can ask Grant to explain the second year, because that's what you've been estimating, right?
Right, I have been. The Mexican government, I'm not sure if it was clear earlier, has provided $3 million to this program, and through a fundraising campaign in the United States, particularly through the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, members of the AZA have contributed over $1 million, 1.2. And so there's $4.2 million that has come from the government and the AZA. And in addition to that, through the online platform and other organizations that have been establishing these crowdfunding campaigns and so on, have raised additional money. And there's a continuous dribble of money coming in through that platform from everybody, actually, who comes into contact with this program. There is still a shortfall of around $500,000, which we are continuing to work on. But this is just to do the program this year and to get all the infrastructure in place, get everybody on board, and obviously roll out the program catching these animals. with that plan coming to fruition, there's the long-term plan is going to require another couple of $1 million the subsequent year and thereafter, particularly for the construction of the sanctuary infrastructure. And then the operation of that would probably start to look after itself, because I think once the animals are there, there's going to be a huge amount of interest in those animals, and this is where the public engagement is going to come into its own, and through the government they'll be able to manage that, I'm sure. So as we all know, fundraising is a continuous development process. It never stops. I'm sure everyone in this room is well aware of that, and it's one of our ongoing programs, in addition to designing the actual animal handling program.
Okay, so I guess we've run out of time, so thanks all for coming. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you for the outreach work that I know you all are going to do. You can start, you can go to your phones right now if you want to. Visit this website. We have stuff in our website. The information is everywhere. It's just a matter of people should know that they should go look for it. This impacts Hong Kong directly. I think it resonates to Hong Kong itself. We were yesterday out with Lorenzo watching the pink dolphins here, which is also a species that deserves all of our support. And well, we look forward to continue to working. And if any of you has any ideas, anything that you think that we can do here, any outreach, going to schools, sending material, doing a film, please contact us at the consulate. We're very happy to work with everybody. Thanks again to Kurt and everybody at the U.S. Consulate General for coming. Grant, very concrete example of how Hong Kong can help through Ocean Park, an iconic Hong Kong institution. And Lorenzo, thank you very much for the very, 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 very long flight, for the very, very, very short stay. But more than that, thanks for the determination you've put behind this all these years. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right? So thank you, guys.